said I would do it. I met the two black fellas that taught me jive.
What happens when television's most beloved perfect family wasn't perfect at all? Behind the soft lighting, scripted hugs, and spotless kitchens of Leave It to Beaver hid a silent storm. Unspoken resentment, emotional distance, and a bond that cracked under the weight of fame. Barbara Billingsley was America's ideal mom, but off-screen, she was battling for respect in a world that favored the boy she helped raise on screen. By the time the cameras started rolling in the late 50s, Barbara Billingsley had already lived a dozen lives and weathered more storms than most people ever knew. She wasn't just another pretty face on television. She was a woman who'd fought for every inch of her career, with quiet strength and unwavering grace. But there was one name in Hollywood she could barely speak without wincing. One man whose presence haunted her memories more than any missed audition or failed role. And while the world adored her as June Cleaver, behind the scenes, Barbara's story was far more complicated. Born Barbara Lillian Combs on December 22, 1915, in Los Angeles, she grew up during one of the hardest economic downturns in U.S. history. Her parents' divorce left her mother raising two daughters alone, and the comforts of childhood were traded for resilience and self-reliance. Barbara found refuge in performance, first on stage, then in front of a camera. After briefly studying at Los Angeles Junior College and USC, she headed to New York with nothing but ambition and a few dollars, hoping to make it in an industry that barely offered second chances. To survive, she modeled. Her natural poise, camera-ready smile, and quiet confidence caught the attention of casting directors. Bit parts followed, roles in post-war B-movies and minor comedies. It wasn't glamorous, but Barbara never complained. Every role, no matter how small, was a stepping stone. By the time she appeared in Three Guys Named Mike and The Bad and the Beautiful, she had built a reputation as a reliable, grounded actress with range and professionalism. Still, the big break hadn't arrived, until it did, almost overnight. In 1957, Barbara stepped into the shoes that would define her career: June Cleaver. At first glance, the character seemed one-dimensional, always polished, always patient, always smiling. But Barbara saw something deeper. She gave June Cleaver a heartbeat. In Leave It to Beaver, she portrayed a mother who wasn't just supportive, she was wise, emotionally intelligent, and unshakably calm in the chaos of suburban life. While the rest of the world embraced the show's nostalgic glow, Barbara worked tirelessly to ensure June was never just a prop in pearls. Her wardrobe became part of television folklore. Viewers noticed that June wore heels while doing housework, and a string of pearls in nearly every episode. But behind those style choices was practicality. The pearls concealed a small hollow in her neck that she thought looked distracting on camera, and the heels helped her stand taller next to her co-stars, particularly the boys playing her sons. But her performance went far beyond costuming. She gave mothers everywhere a quiet dignity, an emotional steadiness that made June Cleaver unforgettable. Ironically, Barbara's personal life was nothing like the sugar-coated suburbs portrayed on screen. She was married 3 times, raising 2 sons through the chaotic ups and downs of an acting career. Behind the scenes, she balanced fame with motherhood, often turning down roles to focus on her family. And when Leave It to Beaver ended in 1963, she didn't chase another show. She walked away, choosing privacy over stardom in a move few actresses at the time dared to make. For years, she made only scattered appearances, choosing a quieter life away from the spotlight. But then, in 1980, she shocked everyone by flipping the script. In the satirical hit Airplane, Barbara played against type, hilariously spoofing her wholesome image by delivering lines in exaggerated jive talk. Audiences were stunned and delighted. The move proved that she wasn't just the perfect TV mom. She was clever, daring, and had a wicked sense of humor. That role, brief as it was, gave Barbara a second wind. Soon after, she returned to her roots, but with a twist. In the 1983 TV movie Still the Beaver and the follow-up series The New Leave It to Beaver, Barbara reprised her most famous role. But this time, June was older, wiser, and now guiding a grown-up beaver through the struggles of fatherhood. It was a brilliant full-circle moment. For longtime fans, it was like reuniting with a friend. For younger viewers, it was a reminder that some characters, and the actors who play them, never truly fade. Her resurgence didn't stop there. Barbara popped up in beloved shows like Murphy Brown, Empty Nest, and even an unexpected cameo in Roseanne, where she once again brought June Cleaver to life with knowing charm. She embraced her legacy without ever seeming stuck in it. In interviews, she was honest about the pressures of typecasting, but never bitter. She understood that being June Cleaver meant something to people. That role had become a cultural touchstone, and she carried that legacy with quiet pride. In 1997, she made her final film appearance in a modern remake of Leave It to Beaver, playing Aunt Martha. It was a passing of the torch, but Barbara still commanded the screen. Her final on-screen role came in 2003's holiday TV movie Secret Santa, a fittingly warm and sentimental ending to a career that had spanned more than 5 decades. Even after her last performance, fans continued to write letters, share memories, and thank her for the comfort she'd unknowingly given them. Off-screen, Barbara was known as kind, gracious, and refreshingly grounded. While others in the industry chased attention, she remained largely out of the tabloids, preferring time with family over red carpets. Friends and colleagues spoke of her as someone who never let fame change her. She stayed true to herself, and perhaps that's why audiences trusted her so deeply. But just as her career had twists no one predicted, Barbara's personal journey held deeper layers still. Her marriages, 3 in total, mirrored the evolution of her life. Young ambition, quiet heartbreak, and eventually, calm companionship. Each relationship shaped her. Each taught her something. And while she rarely spoke about the pain behind the smiles, those close to her knew there were chapters she kept closed to the public. Still, what she gave to the world wasn't just a character. It was a vision of maternal strength that endured. She became more than a TV mom. She became an idea, a memory, a symbol of simpler times and steadfast values. She married into glamour in 1941, trading childhood dreams for the dazzling lights of Key West. Her first husband, Glenn Billingsley Sr., wasn't just any restaurateur. He boasted ties to the elite Stork Club in New York through his powerful uncle. Suddenly, Barbara was living in a world filled with exotic Polynesian-themed eateries and oceanside soirees, an intoxicating backdrop for a young actress-to-be. But even amid tiki bar culture, her ambition burned brighter. She balanced her nascent modeling career with learning lines, nurturing dreams that stretched far beyond party tables and passers-by's applause. The harsh reality, though, lurked beneath the glamour, and by 1947, their marriage had crumbled. She left with 2 sons to raise and a steadfast determination to build a career in Hollywood. 6 years later, in 1953, she found solace in a new partnership, this time with Roy Keane, a British-born director whose creative mindset matched her own. Their bond grew around scripts and sets, shared passions, early morning rehearsals, late-night rewrites. He became her anchor in an unpredictable industry. But in 1956, tragedy struck. Kino collapsed from a heart attack at just 44, leaving Barbara alone and grief-stricken. It was a dark chapter, silent and sudden, that tested her strength. Yet half a year later, she faced a crossroads. The script for a television pilot landed on her desk. Little did she know, this was the opening she'd been waiting for. The role that would define a generation. In 1957, that pilot became Leave It to Beaver, and she became June Cleaver, the archetype of maternal grace, kindness, and steadfast poise. Yet for Barbara, it was never simply about the pearls and polite voice. She infused June with authenticity, turning suburban cliches into meaningful moments. Viewers saw a mother who offered calm amid chaos, whose love anchored her family even when humor and mishaps ensued. Subtle costume choices, heels to balance height, pearls to conceal camera shadows, became personal signatures, seamlessly woven into a character far deeper than wardrobe. And then came her third major partnership in 1959, this time a quieter one. She married William S. Mortensen, a businessman far removed from Hollywood's stage lights. Their union was anchored in mutual support and tranquility. For more than 20 years, they built a life marked by stability, laughter, and unspoken devotion. He guarded her privacy, stood behind the cameras as she ascended, and in return, she offered loyalty and grace. When he passed in 1981, it closed another intimate chapter, an era filled with love, trust, and soft companionship. But even in her personal life, the echoes of performance followed her. She stayed true to her private world, prioritizing her family, minimizing appearances, and valuing the sanctuary she'd built behind closed doors. That balance shaped her sense of identity, June Cleaver to millions, but also Barbara Billingsley, mother, wife, and yet the simmering tension beneath her screen persona would soon surface in an unexpected way. On set, cameras rolled on the relationship she and Jerry Mathers portrayed as mother and son. Millions tuned in to watch their easy rapport, the warmth between June and Beaver. But whispers began swirling. Had the actress and her young on-screen child grown apart? Initially, their bond seemed effortless. Jerry, bright-eyed and polite, embodied the epitome of a wholesome family dynamic. But adolescence crept in, so did strains behind the scenes. He became less punctual, more erratic, forgetting lines, showing up late, quipping off-camera comments that shifted the mood on set. The once smooth dynamic began to crack, and Barbara, accustomed to precision and professionalism, found her patience tested. Sources on both sides recalled a quiet friction. She never publicly complained, but insiders sensed her frustration grow. As one recalled, they were professional actors. It was not true family-type affection. But over time, that professional distance began to feel personal. The tension, though, didn't make headlines at the time. It simmered beneath the surface, known only to castmates and crew, masked by rehearsals, retakes, and the unwavering smile June wore in every scene. But for Barbara, those perfect takes became emotional marathons, balancing maternal warmth with on-set discipline, shrouded by a TV bright lighting rig that hid the quiet war behind her eyes. As the years wore on and the show marched forward, the outsider observer might never have guessed the undercurrent. But by the final season in 1963, that dynamic had shifted entirely. Filming felt different, less spontaneous laughter, more controlled silence. The magic between mother and son so effortlessly captured in earlier episodes, had diminished, replaced by a careful equilibrium that spoke louder than any dialogue about pressure or restraint. When the show signed off, Barbara walked away from the silver screen, carrying pride in her work, but also relief. The tension rooted in those earlier days of filming didn't follow her home. Instead, she retreated, regrouped, and rebuilt. She chose family and found comfort in simplicity, far from the bright lights that once defined her life. And yet, even after years in retirement, she couldn't escape her legacy. In 1980, she re-emerged in Airplane, poking fun at her own persona, and reminding audiences that June Cleaver had a sense of humor. In the sequels that followed, she stepped back into the role that had both elevated and complicated her life, bridging two generations with a knowing glance and a soft smile. But the unseen tension from her early days with Jerry lingered, like a quiet thread in a grand tapestry, unseen by viewers, but forever woven into her story. And behind the pearls, behind the poised facade, there remained questions she would never fully answer. That unresolved layer, the one hidden behind decades of interviews and public recollection, becomes the bridge to our next chapter. A chapter that reveals more about her closeness with her sons, the balance she struck between fame and privacy, and the emotional legacy she left behind, both on-screen and off. Every scene after that tense final episode felt like a rebroadcast of a relationship that never quite healed. Off-camera, Jerry's antics, once charming, had turned into a source of deep irritation for Barbara. She valued discipline above all, and watching this once well-behaved boy shrug off responsibility under producer indulgence planted the seeds of resentment. In her eyes, the show that made him famous had also spoiled him, and that spoiled version rubbed her the wrong way. She had fought tooth and nail for every role, every line delivered with care, and here was a child actor getting a free pass. Behind closed doors, she scolded him, urging stricter on-set rules. But her concerns were brushed off with a simple, "Boys will be boys." And that dismissal stung more than any harsh critic. A former crew member later recalled, "I gave that boy my best years. He gave me headaches," capturing what insiders whispered silently on set. Yet Barbara never spoke ill of Jerry in public. Her interviews always held a gracious tone, but sharp listeners detected a frustrating undertone whenever his name surfaced. They say restraint speaks louder than words, and hers echoed in every carefully chosen phrase, hinting at emotion she preferred to keep hidden. As Jerry slung back into center stage, riding the wave of nostalgia, Barbara recoiled. A reunion project pitched in the early 80s, supposedly a celebration, felt more like a reminder of confinement. "It's like being asked to walk back into a cage. That show defined me, but it also confined me," she reportedly lamented. Jerry embraced the idea wholeheartedly, but Barbara bristled, sensing an opportunity lost to growth. That moment revealed so much. A woman protected herself so she could step forward, not stay frozen. In those final years, she seldom toured the interview circuit. Instead, she guarded her privacy, cherishing time with family while shying away from the glare she once commanded. When fans left flowers at her resting place in Woodlawn Memorial Cemetery, they weren't just honoring a TV mom, they were honoring someone who had brought warmth, calm, and emotional intelligence to a nation eager for assurance. She rested among Hollywood's legends, not for fame, but for the solace her presence inspired. What remains most intriguing, however, is the gap between June Cleaver, the ideal mother, and the complex woman behind Pearls. Barbara's real impact lay not just through scripted lines, but in the way she held space for authenticity, even when that space was uncomfortable. She shaped expectations, challenged norms, and yet remained obscured by her own legacy. And what about Jerry? Today, he still attends reunion panels, shares fond memories, and supports preservation of the show's history. But Barbara's standoffishness wasn't bitterness. It was self-protection, perhaps the act of a woman reclaiming her identity beyond the roles history had cast her in. That tension, unspoken, unresolved, became the silent thread woven through her final years. A reminder that sometimes the hardest stories are those left unsaid. Before we close this tale, let's talk about celebrity life and transformation. Not just in emotion, but in wealth and lifestyle. Barbara's estimated net worth at her passing was around $12 million. She invested carefully. Reports suggest she owned real estate in Santa Monica, including her longtime home where she died, a sign that she valued grounded stability over flashy assets. No rumors of private jets or exotic cars. Her luxury was comfort. No public collection of watches or designer cars. The simplicity seemed intentional. Insurance? Likely comprehensive coverage given her health in later years, though none was ever publicized. Unlike many of her peers, Barbara's wealth wasn't flaunted. She spent it quietly, reinvesting in her space and peace. Jerry, by contrast, leveraged his showbiz origins into ongoing income streams. He's appeared on reunion specials, sold merchandise through his website, and maintained his celebrity brand. He reportedly owns a few modest properties and participates in fan events, monetizing nostalgia. It's a stark contrast in strategy. Jerry converted fame into perpetual visibility and earnings, while Barbara chose low visibility, security, and privacy. What financial lessons emerge from this? First, diversify. Don't let one role define all income. Jerry's path shows the power of brand extension. But Barbara teaches another lesson. It's okay to take the high road, to protect your mental space over short-term profit. She chose lasting equilibrium over fleeting gain. Second, invest in what anchors you, whether that's a home, a family, or a health-supported retirement. Barbara's quiet choices secured her dignity, even if it meant stepping back from the limelight. And so, as this story closes, we see a woman who lived with grace, ambition, and emotional complexity. She gave America June Cleaver, but she kept Barbara safe. She taught millions about calm kindness, and taught us all that sometimes the most powerful move is choosing yourself. If this story moved you, share your thoughts below. What moments of the show do you see differently now? Tap subscribe if you're drawn to the untold truths behind the faces we thought we knew.